While we are waiting on if anybody is left to join, do y'all have any questions from last week? We talked about packages, we talked about access modifiers, and if you can see my screen, we'll be going over the exercises from week 5 and 6. We'll be also showing you how to debug your code today. We'll talk about enums, we'll talk about what encapsulation is and what inheritance is. And the last two topics, I mean, if we have time, I'll go over them today. If not, we will discuss them next week. And y'all can time check me. I hope I will not go over 6 this week, so. Any questions from last week or the past couple of weeks? Any questions about classes, packages, access modifiers? We'll go over packages and access modifiers, a refresher, but if you have any specific questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
We can get started, Ram, whenever you're ready. I think
Okay.
that's on for the day.
All right, sounds good. Any questions on classes or anything like that? I've not heard back from a couple of people, So Mira, any questions?
No.
Okay, all right. So we'll go and get started. So I'll do a quick refresher on what we discussed last week. We talked about packages and access modifiers, okay? So packages are a way for you to organize your code a little bit. So normally you would group things that you think are related into a package. Package in Java, most probably if you kind of look, at least the custom packages that we write, we normally start with com, which normally stands for company, and then you would kind of give it your application, right? In this case, let's say I want to do an e-commerce application. So I gave my package name as com.ecommerce, and then the class is related to my e-commerce application, right? Maybe I'll put them in right here, There are different ways to structure classes, into packages, but one way is you can group them by functionality. Some folks basically group them by POJOs, or basically plain old Java objects, which we'll talk a little bit later, But at this point, you would need to know that, packages are a way for you to group functionality together. The things that packages give you is, it helps you avoid name conflicts, right? So let's assume you had a book class, and if you declare a book class in com.ecommerce package, right? It is different from, let's say I define a book class in com.pojo, right? So these are two different book classes, So one other reason you may want to use packages, it helps with naming conflicts, right? So when users want to use the package book class, they would have to import it specifically by giving an import statement. Okay. So when you define a package and when you create a class within a package, the first statement of your class should always be the package statement and then the name of the package. Right? So in this case, and I think maybe I have a mistake here. Let me just, yeah. So in this case, I have a book class here that I defined. And if you see, it is in the package com.ecommerce, right? So basically, I need to have the statement package com.ecommerce right here at the starting of my file. Any questions on that, on packages? And if you want to use this class, right? What you have to do, if you want to use this class in another class, you'll have to go ahead and import that class by using the import statement. Okay. And maybe I'll show you a quick example here. Let me see. How about we just create one? Let's say, let's say I have a class called e-commerce app, and I want to use uh, the Square class here. Okay, so basically, I would have to first import that class called import com, and it's part of the inheritance package, right? So I would say com dot inheritance, and then after I do that, you see com.inheritance, and you can either use the star notation, which basically imports everything from this package, or you can say I want to import a specific class called Square. Okay. So in this case, I'm importing only the class called Square. And then I can create an object of that class by saying Square. In this case, I have another, in my Square constructor, I have another argument that I wanted to talk about a little bit later. That's why for now, the Square constructor basically takes two arguments here. It takes something called shape types, uh, which is a new class that I created, and it takes a length parameter. Since I didn't talk about the shape types, so I'm just going to pass a null value for now, just so that we can make progress on this class, and we'll come back and talk about that. But the gist of what I wanted to cover is, if you want to use a class from a different package, you will have to basically import that class by using the import statement. And you can either use the star notation, or you can import that class specifically. And as a general best practice, I would always say import individual classes like this. And then this is something we saw in the earlier classes. You can create a object of the Square class by defining, hey, here's the type, here's the variable name, and here's the call to the constructor. Any questions about class packages and the way you can import packages?
Is it just the code part where you put import com.inheritance.square that you imported it?
What was the question, Isabella? Sorry.
Is it just that code that you're highlighting there that imports it?
Yes, that's correct as well. All right. Any other questions? All right. The one other thing that we saw in the last class was access modifiers, right? So when I say access modifiers, what I mean is, like, for example, if I can say this is private, right? That is an access modifier. I can either say this is public, that's another access modifier. And the third access modifier is a default access modifier when I don't specify anything, okay? So when I say private, right, what it means is this variable called name is only accessible within the book class, it's not accessible anywhere. If I take out the private here, that's the default access modifier. That basically means that this name from the book class is accessible throughout my package, okay? So for example, what I mean is, like, let's say if I create, like, let's say if here, I want to create a book class, okay? And I want to import it from this com.pojo package, right? So going back, so you can see that it's using the default access modifier, right? That basically means I should be able to access the name variable, right? So you can see I can set this to a different, name here. That's the default access modifier. Right? What if I make this private? Right? If I make this private and I save everything, if I go back to my main class, right, you can see now that I cannot access the variable anymore, right? So by making it private, basically what you're saying is this value, this variable can be accessed only within this class. You cannot access anywhere outside this class. Right? The default modifier accesses it throughout the package. So if I do that, you can access this variable throughout the package. But if you want to access this throughout the whole project, right, wherever, not only in this package, but anywhere else, you got to make this public. So those are the three, at least the three access modifiers that I wanted to touch base on so far. There are a couple of more access modifiers which we will talk about when we talk about inheritance, but for now you need to know these three access modifiers. Any questions so far?
Can you name the three types again?
So the first one, Isabella, is private, right? The second one is public. And the third one is a default access modifier when you don't provide it an access modifier at all, okay? So that's the third type. So private, public, and the third type is the default access modifier, which is basically when you don't provide it an access modifier, okay?
So it would be neither public or private.
Yes, it'll be neither public or private, but what it means is important, right? It means that I will be able to access, like in this case, the price, right? I can access price anywhere in my package, So in this case, like for example, this book.java, right, is present in the package called com.pojo, right? And in this main class, right, I'm creating an object of a book. Right? So I can do book.price, right? And I can set this a value. And the reason I can do this is because if I go back to book class, right, it's using the default access modifier, If I make this private, and if I go back, right, it'll show that this is an error because, you cannot access private variables outside the class, okay?
Right. Okay, thank you.
All right, any questions about packages, access modifiers, import statements? All right, if there are no questions, let's go to a quick Kahoot. think I'm expecting one more. All right. I don't see everybody joined. I think Gracie, I see you. I think I'm missing somebody here. All right. I'll go and get started. Good job, guys. Good job. All right. Just like we talked, right? So in Java, if you are using packages, right? If in this case, my e-commerce app is within the package com.ecommerce, right? You should always start, your class should always start with the package keyword followed by the name of the package, right? So the correct answer is true, okay? All right, good job. All right, so for the two who got this wrong, right? So if you make this variable private, right? Like we were saying in the book class, if you make it private, right? I cannot access it anywhere else, So I cannot access it in my main class, right? So the correct answer is false, yeah, okay. All right, guys. So we talked about this a little bit in depth. So if you are using the default access modifier, right, then you can access the variable in the same package, okay? You cannot access it outside the package, but you should be able to access it in the same package, okay? Good job. All right, good job, guys. I think majority of y'all had got most of the questions right. Good job, Alia, Adam, and Mira. I think every week we have new folks who always are the leaders. Good job, guys. So the next, what we wanted to talk about was, I wanted to talk about week 5 assignment. And I was hoping somebody can share their screen and go over the assignment for week 5. Would anybody like to share their screen and go over week 5's assignment?
I
I can do it.
Go ahead. Is that Anya or Gracie?
Anya.
All right, go ahead, Anya.
All right, give me a moment. Oh wait, we're talking about last week's assignment, right?
Yes, that's
Okay.
week 5 assignment. This is the one, Anya. I know you completed this, right?
Yeah.
Yep, that's it.
Okay, I just want to make sure. So at first I was having a bit of a trouble with it, but last week Mr. Ram here helped me to figure out a lot of things. But basically we have my array. So I used a package called my array just to sort things out. And I called my class my new array because I didn't want to get confused. But so we have the size of the array is 100. And then we, sorry, it's just background noise. So then what we have 100, and then we do random numbers up to 100. Then as we scroll down, we have the system out print, and we're initialize if I is 0, I less than length, I plus plus, print out numbers array. So we do that. And then as we scroll down, it checks if index is more than length, system out print line index greater than length array, return 0. Now as we go down more, if it sees that length is less than numbers array dot length, length plus plus, else say no space in the array. Then we have the public Boolean, does array contain value? This was one of that we had to figure out and complete. So for this, we have I equals 0, I less than length, I plus plus. And it's going to print out the numbers array, and then it's going to search if numbers array I equal search value, you return true, otherwise return false. So what this does, it figures out where the number is and it prints it. So then we have the get index as value string, saying which number it is that we're looking for at what index. So for example, if we had index 4 and index 4 was 1, it would say that. And then here we go down into the main constructor. And here is where we kind of initialize the thing. So we want our array to only list numbers up to 50 or so, and they're random numbers. So it does that, and it searches through that for the number that we're looking for, which is number 1, which I initialized. And then it prints out where the number is, or if it's founded and such. So that's kind of it.
Good job, Anya. Can you go up, Anya, a little bit? All the way to the top. So in this class, we basically created 2 instance variables, right? The class that Anya described is my new array. So this class has 2 instance variables, just so that you're getting the terminology correct, right? The instance variables are numbers, array, and length. And if you kind of look at this, so one thing you'll notice is, your class can basically contain arrays too as instance variables. I mean, that may be straightforward, but just for you guys to know, hey, your class can contain arrays as values, okay? So in this case, we declared an array of numbers, right? Of integers, okay? Lines 17 through lines 19. This is the place where we're initializing the numbers array, right, with some random values. So whenever Anya was calling the constructor, internally what was happening was the numbers array is getting initialized with random values. Okay. Can you go down, Anya? So there are some provided functions, right? The print array, I provided it to you. The get value at index, that's the next method, which I already provided the implementation for you. Can you go down, Anya? Insert at end, basically that's another one that I provided implementation for. Basically it inserts a value at the end of the array, right? So the 2 things that you had to implement was, does array contain value? And like Anya explained, right? Line number 73 basically iterates over from I equal to 0 to I less than length. So basically it's iterating over your array, right? And line number 74 prints the element at that index. And then you're checking to see if the value at that index is equal to the search value. If it is equal, then you're basically saying return back, right? So the first element you find, you automatically return back, right? And Anya actually figured out how to debug her code. Anya, do you want to go and show how you debugged your code the other day?
Okay. Let me just, better see if I can make this move. Come on, move.
Yeah, and pay close attention. You are going to, as you kind of program, right, you'll be using this quite a lot, okay? And when I say debug, I mean, whenever you're having an issue with your program, right, you want to basically troubleshoot that issue, right? So at that point, you want to debug your code, okay? The first step, Anya, just make sure you have your breakpoints placed, right?
Yeah, I pressed the bug thing. Just the Zoom share screen is kind of getting in the way. So.
Okay.
Let me see if I can try to move it. What on earth happened here?
And Anya, I think, yep, if you hover over that, right, I think you can move this a little bit. Just hover over that line, Anya, and then you can move it. Yep, cool, good job.
Okay, yeah, so basically this debug thing is very helpful. It actually helps you figure out it actually lists all the indexes that are in your random number generator. Let me see if I can remember how to do that.
Anya, do one thing. Go ahead and stop your execution, right? And maybe I can guide you a little bit here.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and place your breakpoint, right, Anya, on line number let's say 104, right?
Okay.
Cool. So a breakpoint basically is you want the execution to stop at that point in your code, okay? Like you see how Anya is doing. Anya is basically saying, hey, I want the execution of my program to stop at line 104, and I want to see what happens from that line on, okay?
Mhm.
And the way Anya is going to debug is by clicking the debug icon over there, which is the bug icon. Good, Anya, take it from here.
Okay. Okay, so now I've clicked the bug icon. So now you can see we've got this kind of selection over here, kind of hidden. We have the variables. We have the breakpoint. Let me see. Okay, here we have the expressions where we can figure out. We can search for what I is. We can search the numbers array with I inside, and the search value.
Yeah, and the reason they're not showing up right now is because we are not at that point of execution yet, okay?
Yeah.
So go back to your variables. All right, go one step, Anya, just go one step.
Might kind of cut off for a moment. Can you repeat what you said?
Yes, go one step. So basically you'll do step over, right?
Yeah, okay.
Cool, and now expand your numbers array object, Anya. Numbers, sorry, my array object, sorry. On your variables, right? Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. And then expand on that.
Now here we have, this is like index 0 is 68. These are all the numbers up to 50, basically. And you see like after, well, okay, 0 is included, and that's why 50 is 0. But like you can see for the rest of things, everything else is going to be 0, because I only said I only want to look for numbers from 0 to, including 0 to 49.
Yep. And so basically line 104, what we did is we call the constructor, right? So what it should have done at that point is it should have initialized my instance variables and then set my array, set my 50 indexes in my array, right? So that's what that's why you can see, hey, if you go up on here, like in my class, right, we had 2 instance variables, right? The length is 1 instance variable and the numbers array, right? So as soon as we call the constructor, we saw that the length is initialized and the numbers array is also initialized, like how Anya was discussing, okay? All right, keep going, Anya.
All right, step over again.
Yes. You can do one more step over, Anya.
Okay.
Cool. And let's talk through this a little bit, Anya, okay? So right now, what happened is when line 106 executed, right? You can see that we are calling from that object, we are calling get value at index. And our assumption is when that gets executed, right? The value at index 1, whatever value is there should be returned, right? Anya, do you want to look at the array and see what is at index 1?
So at index 1 is 50, as you can see.
Yep, so that is returned, right, from the method, and it is stored in a variable called value at index, right? So you can see that if you minimize that, Anya, you can actually see that value, right? Yep, there you go. So basically what the debugger shows you, right, at each individual step on your execution, you can basically see what's happening, right? All right, Anya, take it over. And you can now go into the method and show them what's happening within the method that you implemented, right?
Okay, so that's the control click, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And just make sure you place your breakpoint, Anya, somewhere in that method. Maybe you can place it at line 74.
Yeah. Okay, I don't know if it's on or not. Let me see. Okay, it's on.
Cool.
And now we can.
You can run all the way to that. Yeah, it's right there, Anya. Good job. Do you want to talk through this, Anya, before you?
Yeah, I guess I could try. So basically, what's it do now? We set the breakpoint. Basically, this step by step, you can see the computer checking every single step, like it's checking. Okay, I equals this. Numbers are right. If numbers are right, I equals search value. Return true. And I actually think it found it. Maybe. Yeah, it actually found it right there.
Okay. Finish the execution. And I want to go a little bit slower, right? Just to explain that execution. Finish it and let's start your debugger again. Yeah.
Okay.
And then just keep going, Anya, and stop in the method, right? Just do step over all the way. Do a step over, Anya. You don't need to go into that method. Just do a step over. It'll automatically stop.
Oh,
Good.
okay.
All right. So like Anya was describing, right? So basically here, in this case, you're starting the for loop, right? And you can see in this method, right, your search value that is getting passed. If you look at your right, you can see your search value. You're basically searching for the value 36. Can you show them that, Anya? On your right-hand side in your variables section, right? Can you highlight that, Anya?
Pardon, I couldn't. Sorry, what did you say?
Can you highlight the search value, the value that is stored in your, so on your left-hand side in the variables?
Oh, okay, here.
Yep. So basically, you're searching for the value called 36 in your array, right? Anya, can you expand your array and show them what the array is?
It's not
You can
in the variables.
you can expand that this, Anya.
Okay.
So you can see the number 36 is present in the at index 1, right?
Yeah.
So what should happen is as you step over, right? Can you minimize this, Anya? And then let's see what happens. Okay, do a step over. You can see the value of I, right? On the left-hand side, sorry, right-hand side, the value of I currently is 0, right? Anya, it may be better to go over the expressions, right? Here. Good job. So the value of I is 0, right? And the numbers array of I, right? Basically the value at the 0th index, I think it's basically 8, right? Keep going, Anya, one step. And in this case, you're going to say, hey, is 8 equal to 36, right? Which is not equal, right? So it should not go within the if loop, right? So go one step, Anya. You see it didn't go into the if loop, right? Then go the next step, Anya. So the button that Anya is clicking, right, is basically step over. Basically, it goes to the next line of your execution. You can kind of see the value of I now changed to 1, right? Because we're doing I is equal to 0, and we increment it by 1 every time, right?
What do you mean by the next line of your execution?
So, like, let's say, for example, was that Gracie, Isabella?
That was Isabella.
Isabella. So basically, like, for example, right now, Isabella, you see the program is executing line number 74, okay? And when Anya clicks on step over, right? Anya, can you click on the step over button? You see it basically went to executing 75, right? So that green colored bar that is shown over there shows you the current line that is getting executed. When I say next line, right, basically I mean like 76 in this case, okay? But if you kind of see now, right, what is happening in line number 75? We are basically checking if numbers array of I equal to search value, right? And look at your right-hand side, Isabella, right? Numbers array of I, the value is 36, okay? and the search value is 36, which is on, yep, good job. Both are equal, right? So what should happen, right? When that statement executes, Isabella, what should happen, right? That numbers array of I equal to search value, that should evaluate to true, right, Isabella?
Right.
And that at that point, it goes to the next line, right? Which basically means it goes to line number 76, okay? Right, so when Anya clicks on that step over, right, you kind of saw it went to line number 76.
So it will only execute that line.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, I thought the breakpoint meant it did everything until the line that the breakpoint was on.
Yeah, I mean, that is true, Anya. I mean, but basically, sorry, Isabella. So whenever you're trying to debug an issue, right, Isabella, you most probably know, hey, I know my program executes to this point in time, but I want to basically see after this what happens, right? So that's why Isabella, so Anya basically said, okay, let me stop at line 74. And from that point on, I'm going to go step by step and see what's happening, okay?
Oh, so that's where you would set your breakpoint. Until then you can just go step by step after that.
Yes, and the way to go step by step, Isabella, is like, Anya, can you go over the icons that are there? The icons that are the debug icons that are there at the top left-hand side when you're doing a step over? Just hover over that. That icon where you do normally a step over, Anya. Where you have the arrow, right? A curved arrow. Anya, are you there?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so I wanted you to show the icons, Anya. Which icon do you click when you do a step over?
Oh, this one right here.
Yep. So you can see if you hover over that, right? It's that icon which says step over, That basically means go to the next line of execution.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what should happen right now is because it found it, right? It should basically return from the execution of this function altogether, right? Because you're using the return statement here. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And if you click step over, Anya, you see the control basically returned back to your main class where you actually called that method. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Any questions on how to debug your code if you're having issues? Gracie, have any questions on this? How do you debug your code?
I don't know how to debug code.
No.
All right, anybody else? Mike? Mira?
No.
All right. I'd like you all to go ahead and give it a try. And then after that, we will talk about the exercise I gave over last week, okay? Go ahead and give it a quick try. See if y'all can debug your code, right? And since Anya completed this exercise, Anya, do you mind if you can go and paste this exercise over in our Slack channel?
So my program in the Slack channel then?
Yes. So
Okay.
if anybody wants to debug their program, right, they can use this to debug their program.
Okay. Just keep in mind, I am using a package right here.
Yep.
So maybe, should I get rid of that then or something?
That's fine. I mean, since we talked about it right now, folks should know, hey, they should create a package called my package. What did you call it? My array?
I called it my array.
Yep. So they have to create a package called my array so that they don't get name conflicts, right? I mean, that's one of the things we want them to try out, right?
Yeah.
So that otherwise they'll get compilation issues because there'll be conflicts in classes, right? So it's a good idea to create a package and put this inside their package, right?
Yeah. And I'm going to put it in a code block.
And Anya, while you're here, do you want to also show them how do you format your code?
Oh yeah, I forgot to do that. Oops. I think you right click and you go somewhere in here.
Source,
Oh yeah, source and format.
format. Yep. So that basically makes your code pretty. I mean, for example, if you had like, if they're missing spaces or the brackets were not in the correct spot, it would basically make sure your code is neatly formatted so that, it's more readable for others. Okay. All right. Go ahead and paste that, Anya, and then we'll give it 5 minutes maybe and see if anybody has any questions about debugging, and then we can talk about the assignment 5.
Okay. So do you want me repost it then since I formatted? I forgot. I posted it.
That's fine, Anya. That's fine.
Okay. It should be in the Java channel.
I'm going to take control back, Anya.
Okay, sure.
Thanks, Anya. Thanks for showing your screen. Go ahead and give debugging a try. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll give like maybe a couple of minutes, Or do you all want to try it later and then we can go to assignment 5? What are the group things, Do you want to try it now, debugging your code, see how it goes, or do you all want to try it out later?
I'm fine doing it now.
All right, cool. Go give it a shot. And let me know if anybody is stuck. And if anybody wants to share their screen, I'll be happy to help anybody out so that the others can also follow along, right?
Mr. Rom,
Yep.
when you debug a code, do you just put the breakpoint and then do you click execute?
Yes. So basically, let me share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yep. So you will hit the bug button here, So it's a debugger, so it's the bug button right there. You see this icon right here?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. That's the bug button. Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Alia, I know you are having an issue. Maybe you can use the debugger to figure out where your issue is, Alia. Anya, one other thing while everybody's trying that out, I wanted you to remove the hard coding, Anya. So basically, I wanted you to get rid of this one over here. So instead, you can basically say value plus, right? So that basically gets rid of your hard coding, Anya.
Okay.
Yep. So that's what I meant, So that way, like, because right now you have passed one, right? But just keep in mind, right? The class that you wrote, right, is not going to be used by you, right? It's going to be used by others, right? So you want this to be a little bit dynamic, Does anybody want to share their screen and show us how you're doing it? Neil, do you want to share your screen? All right, Neil. Michael, do you want to share your screen? All right, go ahead, Michael. Okay, that's fine. Maybe you can share your screen and I can talk through it, Michael. I'm going to stop sharing, Michael, so you can share. And then as you step over your code, maybe I'll talk through that, okay? Good job, Michael. All right. Go ahead and place your breakpoint. And maybe specifically place your breakpoint in one of the methods, right? So go to either the does array contain value or the other method, right? Can you go down, Michael? Cool. Maybe we'll try to see get indexes of value as string, right? Maybe we'll try to debug that. So line number 78, Michael. So the way you place your breakpoint, right, Michael? Just click on that, and then I think Anya right-clicked and said toggle breakpoint, right? Cool, good job. And let's say you want the program to execute all the way there, right? And Michael, I think the editor pane that you probably don't need is the one that's all the way to the left, right, Michael? So you can probably minimize that, Yeah, good job. Okay, cool. So go ahead and start the debug session, Michael, by clicking the bug icon. Right, and maybe you can minimize that, Michael. We probably, yep. You see there's a small, not that, Michael. There's a small minus there. Yep, there you go. Just click on that. Cool. Yeah, maybe minimize it a little, like, yep, good job. All right. So can you say, Michael, where your execution stopped, right? It stopped at line 78. Right? You can see the green line over there, right? And you want to be watching the, on your right-hand side, Michael, there are variables, breakpoints, and expressions, right? You want variables, okay? Not sure why your thing is showing as empty. I think we'll have to come back and figure that out, Michael. Go to expressions, Michael. Maybe, I'm not sure why your variables are not showing. Here you can add an expression, Michael. Just say type value in there. Just go type it. Yep. Just type in value. Cool, enter. I don't know if your thing is executing, Michael. Go ahead and stop it and run this again. Stop that. And click on the bug icon again. All right, now go back to the variables. Let's take a look. There you go. Click on this, Michael. Click on this. Yeah, click on that. Yep. So basically this means that's your class, okay? And you click on the numbers array, right? And then that'll show you all the numbers in the array, right? And you can minimize that, Michael. Sorry, whoops, get that back. When I say minimize that, yep, that's good. So you can see the value that is passed, right, to your method has the value 1, right? And then you can do step over, Michael. Step over is that, I think it's Shift F6, but you can click on that small icon right at the top left corner, Michael. Keep going up, keep going to your right a little bit. Right. Yeah, one more. Yep. Cool. You kind of see, Michael, it now went to line 79, right? You can do step over again and it'll go to line 80. Right? You can see now the program execution, right? Right now your value of I should be 0, right? And in this case, the value that you're passing, is it the search value? I don't think so, right? Just keep going one more. Yeah, so it didn't go into the if loop, right? And then step over again. Now you can see the value of I, it's highlighted in yellow, it's 1, right? All right. So that's how you debug, Michael. You can, I think there's you'll probably have a compilation issue. You may want to get rid of that F over there in line 78, you know. Yep. All right, Michael, any questions? That's how you debug your code. So you can see, you know, at every point, right, in your execution of your program, what's happening, okay? Do you have any questions, Michael? You can type it over since you don't have a mic. Cool. All right. Is anybody stuck on anything? Does anybody need help over debugging?
What if your code is running without any problems?
I mean, you don't need to debug at that point, right? I mean, you're lucky. I mean, normally, I mean, you will, when you write code, right, you know, there will be issues and you may want to debug, right? If there are no issues, you can just go and click the run button.
Okay.
The other way to do this, Isabella, is you can always put system.out.println, right? But that, you know, I mean, that's a painful process to see at each point in your execution, right, what's happening, you know? All right. I think we should probably head over to the next exercise. Do you guys agree?
Yep.
All right. Does anybody want to share their exercise too?
I can. Is it the one with like the e-commerce thing?
Yes. Go ahead, Gracie. Share your screen. Or if you want to talk through it, that's fine too. But if you have something written, that's good.
Okay, so I made like the e-commerce package thing,
Okay.
and then I
cool.
have my book class, which has title, author, price, and description. But I kind of gave up on description because I didn't feel like writing that out.
Okay.
And then it just creates it, and then I couldn't figure out a way to like make it print without having to like actually type them all out. So I made strings for the book authors and prices, and then added that. So then in my print thing, it can just go through all the different things, like all the different authors and prices and book names. And then I also have a user class with a username and email. So then I just created books and
All right. All right, Gracie. Can you go to your book class, Gracie? All right, Gracie. I may would do it a little bit differently, Gracie. I'm not saying that is wrong, but I'd probably do it a little bit differently. Okay. The one thing I would tell you, though, Gracie, is just the naming conventions, right? Your class name should always start with a capital B, so it'll be book, you know. And a quick way to change that, Gracie, I mean, since we are, can you highlight that class name, Gracie?
this.
Yeah, but can you, I think, right-click on that? And then do refactor.
Refactor.
Yes.
Oh.
And then rename. And then go rename it. Make it a capital B. Oops. I think you, I think we need to try this again. Yeah, change it back to
If
small
I
b.
want to rename it, I just kind of do that, and then it has the little rename thing.
Yeah, I wanted to show you the refactoring capability because, you know, you'll probably, the one thing, right, Gracie, like for example, right now, you see it didn't change line number 14, right? If you did that correctly, Gracie, you know, if you did that refactor and rename, it would basically change everywhere, okay? That's fine.
That would be easier.
Yep. All right. Does anybody want to maybe change the book implementation a little bit?
You just had to do a write-up, right?
Yes, you had to do a write-up, not implement, right? But I'm just curious. The things that we wanted to figure out, right? What are your classes going to be? What are some possible methods going to be in the class, you know? So anybody would maybe change any implementation of what Gracie is showing? I do like that Gracie defined instance variables for the class, like the title, author, and price, right? The count of the books, you know, yep, I agree. Maybe, you know, we need to keep the count of the books, right? The thing that I'm struggling, Gracie, is having line numbers 10, 11, and 12, right? Within the same class, Gracie, okay? Because like it's a book, right? A book has title, author, and price, right? But maybe it doesn't have a list of books, right? You know, maybe that's not an instance variable, right? And maybe the prices, right? You know, I'm struggling with that too a little bit. On your authors, right? Maybe yes, I could probably see that, you know, a book can have multiple authors, right? Yep, I would agree with line number 11, but line numbers 10 and 12, right? I'm struggling a little bit, Gracie. Okay, because
Okay.
normally a book would not have a list, right? You know, maybe, Gracie, what I would do is maybe create another class called book list or something, right? And that would basically have a list of books, you know?
Okay, that would work, yeah.
Yep. Just, I mean, this is all kind of think in object-oriented terms, right, Gracie? So, and the purpose of the exercises, you know? So I would definitely agree with your line 16, 17, 18, but line number 20, 21, I would not, maybe I would get rid of those, Gracie, okay? I definitely agree with your user class too that you have. Let's go and give this a try, Gracie. One more shot, okay? Instead of trying to refactor from here on your Explorer, right? On the Windows Explorer, yeah, right click on that and say rename. Right click and refactor and rename. Refactor and rename. And use capital U, Grace. Yep. And then say finish. Then say finish. All right, you can now see, right? It changed the references everywhere. It changed the name of your class, changed the constructor too, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Does anybody else want to share their implementation for the e-commerce site before I can go and share mine? The one thing before anybody shares, the one thing I noticed, Gracie, is the category class, right? Category, I wanted to have a category variable. And I wanted to touch base on that a little bit more, you know, but just saying that probably when I show my implementation, right? You can pay attention to the category, okay?
Okay.
Book
So
category,
that stop
okay?
showing?
Yep. Does anybody have a different implementation for book? For your e-commerce site? Alia, do you want to go and share your screen, Alia? I actually like your implementation, by the way.
Yeah, but it's a text document. It's what I sent you yesterday.
Yeah, that's fine now, Alia.
Okay, let me get it.
Good job, Gracie, by the way.
Can you see the?
Yep.
Okay. So what I did is I just made a list and kind of the attributes of it. So I knew that you have to have a list of books, and I mean, it could be random books. And in the list of books, you have categories. Now the categories, the values are drama, fantasy, horror, and programming, which was in there. Then you go to the book itself. You've got the title, author, price, description, and the category, which would be one of these, the drama, fantasy, horror, or programming, as well as the price. Then the user has its emails, name, address, and a list of books, which includes this right here, which would kind of include that as well. And then at the checkout, the list of books that they like, the price per book, and total price for all books.
Good job, Anya. It's actually very, very close to the implementation that I wanted to show too. And maybe I can share my implementation, Anya, and you'll see that there'll be very few changes, okay? But to the most extent, it's very similar to what you have.
Okay.
Cool, good job. I'm going to share my screen, and not to say that this is the right way, right? You know, but this is an implementation, okay? I've added a couple of more fields. So first, and maybe, okay, yeah. Everybody can see my screen, right? So basically, first I created a package called com.ecommerce. And in that, I created a package, a class called book. I mean, this is a new variable that I created, obviously. The title, author, price. These are pretty straightforward. Gracie, you had it. Anya, you had it, right? So everybody had this, and the description too, right? So everybody had all these four. For the book category, right? I'm going to introduce a new concept called Enum. Okay. So Enum is just, I mean, it's a special type of class where, if you want to have a set values, right? I could basically create an Enum. Okay. It's pretty similar to class, but it is a little different too. Normally you use Enums when you want to create a set of predefined values. Okay. So in this case, I'm creating an Enum called book category. And you'll see enums pretty frequently in your FRC things too. Okay, so this is, I mean, you got to pay attention to what enums are. And normally enums, like I said, they're kind of used to define a predefined set of values. In this case, I'm saying my enum called book category contains the following, right? It contains horror, thriller, drama, and biography. Okay. And as a convention, I'm basically saying, hey, everything is a capital letter, this kind of tells me this is the book category enum. Okay. Any question on enums? It's a special type of class. Okay. Any questions on enums? And you could define the enum outside of this class too, basically saying, hey, like how Anya did, right? She basically, instead of defining it in the book class, she basically went and said, hey, there is another class called category, right? So basically I could have said, right here, I could have said, go ahead and create a new enum called book category, okay? But in this case, I didn't want it to be accessible outside. So I went and created the enum right in here, okay? So enum is nothing but just a declaration of, hey, here are some valid values. And what I did is, and in my book class, right? In addition to the other instance variables for ISBN, title, author, price, and description, I'm creating a new instance variable. The type of the instance variable is book category, which is actually my new enum. And remember I said that it's like another class, right? Or it's another type, right? So basically the type is book category and the value, right, is, I said, book category here, okay? This is the variable name. And when I'm initializing my book, I'm basically saying the title parameter, author parameter, the price parameter, book category parameter. You see the type, it's of type book category, pretty similar to what we gave it here. And the value, the parameter value, I'm calling book category parameter, right? And the description is another string, okay? This is the constructor. And now if I want to initialize my book, right? The way I would do this is, and you can see the first parameter is title. So let's just say title book, say Java book. The next, let's say John Doe. The price, let's say it's $3.99. The one that I wanted to focus on was the book category, right? How do you give the book category? So the way you do it is, you will give your enum name, okay, and do a dot. It works very similar to the static variables, okay, and then say it's biography or something like that, okay. So that's how you initialize. I mean, that's how you basically initialize this book category value. And the description, right? Just say Any questions about enums? I'm going to paste this thing because, as you do the next assignment, you will most probably need this. So for book category, right, whenever there's a preset defined values, I would suggest you use an enum. This is how you declare an enum. And the way you, if you want to basically access values in an enum, right, you can say book category dot the value you want. Pretty similar to how you access static values, right? And just so that, we can complete this, maybe see what the book dot, let's say the, this case, I want to print the book category, right? So, and let's go and execute this. Can you see? It's printing the value biography, okay. So this is one way you can make sure that when the user is creating your book, right, pass the correct book category. And if it's not one of these categories, your program will throw a compilation issue. Any questions about enums? Also, any questions about my book implementation, book class implementation? I will post this right after the class is done. The next class that I thought would be good to have is something called a book list, okay? And in this case, I'm saying this is an array of books, right? It's very similar to our assignment that we had where we had an array of integers. In this case, I'm saying my book list, right, should have an array of books. I'm assuming there needs to be a constructor for that, which probably maybe does not do anything in this case. But maybe I need to have a method called add book, okay? So that my default implementation will be, right? Let's say if I have to put some mock implementation for this add books, you will say books, books array. You probably need to get the index, right? Where it is free. For now, I'm assuming the index 0 is free, okay? And then I'm going to set that, something like that, So basically when somebody calls the add book method, right, you basically want to add this book to your books array, okay? And the reason I created a books list class, right, is there are two places where I can use this book list, right? One place is you need to have an inventory of books, right? So that is basically a list of books, right? The other place is the user normally chooses a list of books, right? So that is also an instance of the book list, right? So there are two spots I can use this, create instances of this class, right? One is basically to store the inventory, which has the list of all the books that maybe you have. And the other spot will be in my user class, I may have to have a variable of the book list so that I can store the books that the user bought, right? So that's my book list class. The user, I'm basically naming the class as e-commerce user, right, instead of user. These are straightforward. I think pretty much everybody got it, like email, name, and address, right? But I created a new instance variable called book list, right? Which is actually the class that I defined, okay? This book list will basically store the values that the user, the books that the user purchased, right? Which is a little different from the inventory, right? Inventory contains all the books, right? And some of the methods in this e-commerce users, I didn't actually write it down because I was looking at Anya's assignment, and I probably agree with all the methods that Anya had, but maybe you'll have a method that says public get total cost or total price, right? So this should basically iterate over your book list and sum up the price and return. Maybe you need to have a method like, when the user is doing a checkout process, right? Just to display the summary, right, of all the books, right? So let's say you may need to have a method called public print summary, right? Here, you basically want to iterate over, or since you already have the book list, right? Maybe I can just say book list dot print, right? With the assumption that, the book list class has a print method, right? So that basically means I have to go here and define a method called public void print book summary, right? Your pseudocode would be iterate over books array, and on each book call print book details method, right? So this basically means that, hey, maybe in my book class, right, I want to call, there is a print book details method, right? So you can kind of see how things start to flow in, right? All right. So on my e-commerce, there's an assumption that I can have maybe total cost, just so that this compiles. I'll just say return. Cool. And then finally, maybe I'll have a main class called e-commerce app. In my e-commerce app, that's where I'll have the main method. And you see, I have another book list here, right? Basically, I'm creating an object of the book list class that I created, which basically in this case, I'm calling my variable called inventory, okay? And here in my inventory, right? For now, long term, as we go through the next couple of exercises, we'll read some books from a flat file, and then load it. But for now, right, we will basically say, hey, you'll create a book, let's say first book equal to new. And you will probably add the first book to your inventory, right? And then you can add a couple of more books, right, to your inventory. So your book list will most probably contain a list of books, right? This is just your inventory, okay? Okay, eventually what you'll probably want to do is you'll want to take some input from the user, right? You'll initialize the user with email, name, and address, and then you'll display the list of books that are available. So in order to display the list of books that are available, right, from the inventory, you just need to iterate over your book list and print the values, right, of each book. And then you'll probably want to take input from the user to say, hey, which book they want to purchase, right? And then you may want to go that in a loop, get some additional books that the user want to purchase, and you'll want to display the total price, right? So, but we're not going to take input from the user, right? For now, you'll probably say, hey, maybe I'll create a user object, right? You'll say, hey, user, first user. It's going to give a compilation error because I have not passed the variables, right? Then you'll say, okay, maybe first user dot add, maybe on the user you want to have a add method, right? Add book, and the pseudo implementation would be dot add book, right? And you probably want to have a book. So we'll create a user and then we'll call the method called add book on the user. Sorry, I think my user is called e-commerce user. So maybe you'll add a book. Maybe let's say, in this case, maybe I just want to add the first book, right? And then at the end of the day, maybe I just want to print his summary, right? So I will say first user dot print summary. That should basically give me the list of the books that the user purchased and then the total price, right? So if I was doing an e-commerce application, right, I would think, these would be my classes. And in each class, I have roughly some sort of implementation for the method that I would need, right? Any questions over the assignment 5? I know what I think would be a good breakdown of what my classes should be, what my methods in each class would be, and things like that. Any questions? Go ask your questions because this will probably be an implementation homework. I would basically want you to go in and implement something similar, right? And I will do a write-up of this. Basically, I'll want you to create an inventory of your books, right? And then I'll want you to initialize your e-commerce user. I'll want you to assume he's going to purchase a book, right? So you'll want to add some books to his cart, and then you will want to print his summary, right? Any questions of why I did this breakdown like this? It's actually very similar to what Anya showed, and almost similar to what Gracie showed, but I just took out a couple of variables. Gracie, the difference is from your implementation, I took out the book list, right? Which I think it should be a separate class by itself because we're going to be the objects of this class, right? Can be an inventory, right? That's a separate object. And then a list of books. A user can also contain a list of books, right? That's why I think it's a separate class by itself, All right, any questions? We're actually close to time, but the assignment for this week, right, will be to implement this e-commerce application, right? And I'll do a write-up, but at a high level, right? You'll create your objects. So you'll create your classes. You'll go and create your methods in your class. You'll go and create an instance variables in your class. And you may want to go ahead and create your inventory in your main method, create your inventory, kind of add some books, right? Create an e-commerce user and add some books to the e-commerce user, and they should already be part of the inventory that's available, right? and then I want you to print the summary, right? I'll actually provide you a mock implementation of the main method, and I do not want to give you the others, right? But because I want that to be an exercise for you, right? To figure out, hey, what my classes should be, what variables should be in my class, and what methods does each class need to have. Any questions for your assignment? Any questions on the breakdown of what classes you think you need, what variables each class contains, or what methods does each class need to have? And once you start implementing, you'll actually figure this out, saying, hey, maybe I need a method, right, on this class, would you all like to basically maybe give you a breakdown of what classes you think I think you should have, if that will help you with your exercise, and maybe the methods that I think you should have in each class, maybe I'll do that, give you the methods, and you can go ahead and write the implementation. What do you all think?
I have no questions.
All right. What do you think, Anya? Should we say, hey, go ahead and implement this example? Or would you prefer that I basically give you the class names that I think you need to have and what methods each class should contain so that you can go ahead and maybe implement the details of each method, right?
I don't know. I could go with either way.
All right, Anya. I was going to post the book class anyway, right? Because we talked about enums, right? Okay, let me do this. I'll go and paste the book class, okay? And I'll give you the implementation of my main method, main app, right? E-commerce app. Try to figure out if you need any help with the other classes and methods in the other classes, And maybe in the Thursday session, right? You can ask your questions. If a lot of people are having issues, maybe I'll give you the other classes too with the methods in each of the class, okay? But give this a thought,
Would that be an assignment for next week?
Yes. And we'll be expanding on this assignment, Gracie, okay, as we go forward, right? When we talk about files, how to read from files, right? How do we use different data structures, So this will kind of be a base assignment going forward, okay? So it's kind of important to kind of get this, so. And we'll actually reuse some of the earlier assignment that we did, the sorting, right? Let's say if the user wants to see a sorted list of the books based on price, right? How do you'll call the sort method that you wrote, right? So.
Also, I was just wondering, on the schedule, it says we're supposed to go over encapsulation and getters and setters and inheritance. Are we still going to do that or save that for next week? Because we're kind of on time.
Yep, we're going to save that for next week as well. They're big topics. I was hoping I could give you a quick sneak peek in the 10 minutes, but even that will not be enough, so I'll have to save it for next week.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any questions on the assignment, Isabella, or do you have any questions on how I broke down the classes, Or do you agree with?
Are you gonna send out the assignment through Slack for us to go over?
Yes, I'll send out the assignment in Slack.
Okay.
But do you have any questions on the way I broke down the classes, or would you like to challenge any of my classes and the instance variables that I created in my classes?
So the assignment's really similar to what we went over today, right?
Yes, it's very similar. You got to implement it, right? And then you will, once you start implementing, maybe you'll say, hey, maybe I need another method, right? You
mean instead of just the write-up, actually?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. All right. If there are no more questions, I think if anybody has questions, I'll talk to you Thursday in the session that we normally have from 4 to 5. But otherwise, I'll talk to you guys next Tuesday.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.